Good evening. I'd like to call this City Commission meeting for September 23rd, 2024 to order at 6:30 PM. Madam City Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Whites.
Here.
Vice Mayor Grunder.
Here.
Commissioner Bloodsworth.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
And Commissioner Williams is absent.
We are going to have our invocation offered by our Chief of Police, followed by the pledge.
For this day, we ask that you give us guidance, Father, that you bless and give us some wisdom as we go about the city business, Father. We ask that you look over us as this storm near us, Father. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next item is approval of tonight's agenda, please.
I make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The agenda is approved. And we don't have a consent agenda? We don't have minutes? Well, it's not even been 2 weeks, so yeah. All right, we will move on to special presentations. The budget. Number 1, do you want to read this for us?
I would be happy to.
Thank
Madam
you,
Mayor,
ma'am.
this is resolution number 2024-M, a resolution of the City of High Springs, Florida, determining the amount of and fixing the final rate of ad valorem taxation for fiscal year 2024-2025, and providing for conflict, severability, and an effective date.
All right, good evening. As you know, this is second reading for our millage rate and for the budget. There are two separate votes, millage first. I'm going to have a very similar presentation to last time. I'll be very brief. It's here for information reminders. As you'll recall, we have a millage rate of 6.99 in 2024, and it's being reduced to 6.74 for fiscal year 25. And we're required to talk about the rollback rate one more time. The taxing authority is the City of High Springs, and the rolled back rate is 6.3802. The percentage increase of the 6.74 over that rolled back rate is 5.639%. And you'll recall again that we have a quarter mil decrease. This is the same budget I showed you before. There were no changes between meetings at all. And again, a reminder for sewer, we are not making any changes to the service fees. The water will see a $3.99 increase per customer per month. The solid waste will be $3 per residential customer per month with no change to commercial. And then we updated the hydrant meter deposits and the monthly fee installation, as we had talked about before. And then again, we need to do two separate votes, one for millage, one for budget, and the millage needs to be done first. That's it.
Gentlemen, Commissioner Miller, you had some questions about the farmer's market. Have those questions been answered in the context of the budget?
Yes, they have been answered. The only thing that I wanted to make a statement about was what was mentioned last meeting, was that the trash was not included. The farm market is not responsible for the trash every day of the week, so that $7,000 should not just be put on the farm market, but should be divided between everybody that actually uses the pavilion. So I don't know if that was an accurate statement, but we'll leave it as that.
So the cost of those two dumpsters that are there, that is levied against the farmer's market operating budget?
It has not been to date.
Okay.
Excuse me. We had enough in 23, 24 to absorb it with the solid waste reserves for all the city containers that were not being, that hadn't been billed before but are billed currently. And we do want to come back with a farmer's market item in general and talk in a little more comprehensively than we're able to do so in the budget setting. Because I think it's a unique department, if you will, so it's going to have a little bit different conversation than your standard budget numbers. So yes, to your point, that hasn't been assigned to them, but that's where it is, and it's used by those vendors. But again, it doesn't have a lock bar in it, I don't think, so it's open to whoever goes by and uses
It's
it.
used all week. I've been making a point to drive by it,
Oh,
and
good,
it's
okay.
overflowing
Gotcha.
pretty regularly. And
Okay.
that can't be just a farmer's market. I'm sure people down
Gotcha.
there use it.
Okay. We'll include
Is there a
in
way
the
that we can get a
discussion.
lock on that trash can and only give it to Carol, because like residents are using that
Right.
particular dumpster?
Yes.
I
we
actually had a
can.
resident that told me that it was a community dumpster. So that's something that people don't know, that it's not a community dumpster.
And we have 2 down there, so if it was just the farmer's market and, folks who were using the pavilion actually using it, 1 might be sufficient. And that would decrease our cost a bit too.
Okay, and there will be a fee for the lock bar, but again, we'll talk about whether we need it. Should we take it out altogether, have a smaller dumpster, et cetera? So we'll definitely have those conversations in that context.
So then in terms of the farmer's market itself, we know what the costs are. We
Yes.
know what money we're bringing in. And we are not losing money on the farmer's market, is that correct?
We are a few $1,000s higher on expenses than revenues. But again, we really want to sit down and kind of tear it apart, take a comprehensive look at it, get some history together for you, what types of vendors we've had, et cetera, et cetera. Because like I said, there's so much more to it than just the dollars. It's the setup, the vendors, the days, the hours, fees for the tables, et cetera. So I want to make sure we give it the time that's needed, because like I said, I know it's not the same as a regular operating department. There's other factors that are involved, so I want to make sure that we have that opportunity to get everything together for you.
It's been pretty robust. I've been going down there fairly regularly, and it's got some really good energy going.
Good.
The vendors are just lovely. They're very happy to be there, so, okay. You weren't here for the party last time. You have
No,
any
no.
questions?
No, a lot of them got answered. There was a lot of
Okay.
good conversation back and forth. I was happy to hear it.
Okay.
No, but I'm glad we're bringing this millage rate down. Still got more to do, though.
I saw Mayor Marlowe at a football game, and we were talking about with their budget. They're leaving their millage rate the same. It's lower than ours, but they don't have a police department. They have just a fire department. So theirs is going up by more than ours is. But he said that they are planning on more than tripling their impact fees, water and wastewater impact fees, over the next 2 years. So I don't know, kind of tangential to the conversation about lot size in terms of how you budget. Danielle and I talked about this a little bit today. How do you figure in those impact fees? This might be a question for Mr. Alligood, I'm not sure, in terms of coming up with a budget. How do you project out what you expect to get?
Right.
Do we know?
No, that's a bigger discussion too, because you want to look at what is an appropriate amount to charge, what's the cost to bring a new customer on, where are we with our capacity,
So
et
you
cetera, et
don't
cetera.
have
So
any kind of metric that you use to try to estimate that?
we have not done that work.
Okay. Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I apologize. I do want to flag too that I think it wasn't up until recently that you all had an impact fee study really developed and adopted.
Right.
So some of it may just be lack of data as well for Ms. Wilson. I imagine that it's hard to project when I think this is probably our first full fiscal year that we'll have impact fees.
Right.
But to your point, something absolutely you all should be considering as we move on to the later agenda items this evening.
Does he think their impact fees are going to go even higher than ours? Because we're at the top now.
I don't know, what, do we know what our water impact fee is off the top of your head, or wastewater?
Well, there's two sets of impact
Residential.
fees too, because you also have the new ones from last January
Right.
that, the general government, parks, rec, and transportation ones, and then we, of course, have the water and wastewater.
We were talking
Um,
just utilities.
Yeah.
Do we know what that
Yeah.
impact fee is?
It's $2,370 if you're adding water and wastewater.
So much more than ours.
Wow. And we had gone up substantially.
Tremendously more than ours.
But I mean, that's the right move.
No,
Gotta
our
pay
water
to
and
play.
wastewater
Right.
could be higher. I mean, given the cost of running the system and,
I think he was saying that their wastewater impact fee for residential right now is $4,000 now. And it's going to
Triple.
more than triple.
right.
They're,
Well, when you look at the capacity of our sewer system, for
Right.
example, or our water system, either one, that's, you have to look at it from, the beginning of actually your wells, getting the water, the cost of pumping, all the way through the treatment and distribution. So there's a lot to it. It's not just the water that comes out of your tap
Right,
or,
right.
flushing a toilet. It's,
that'd be a great conversation to have as we're leading into next year's budget to see
Mm-hmm.
if we can revisit those impact fees. Is there any kind of time that we need to be sensitive to not? I mean, if they've only been there for a year, would there be anything that prohibited us from bumping them up some more?
Off the top of my head, the way that the statute reads is it's not an imposition as to when you can handle it here. It's a restriction on how soon you can then implement it on the consumer. There's typically like I don't know if they call it a waiting period or a notice period, but it's 90 days. You can't, so it wouldn't be like, for example, you couldn't adopt impact fees tonight and then start implementing them tomorrow.
Right.
There's this 90-day mandatory waiting period between the two. So it may be of value to go back and figure out what the 1 year point is going to be. Because then you've got data for a year and you can make a full, well-rounded assessment of that. And just keep in mind in the back of your head that you are gonna have that gap waiting period of 90 days.
And any changes in impact fees would not apply to Bridlewood because they, I assume, are locked in on what was current when they signed their developers agreement.
I'd have to review the developer's agreement. Typically, impact fees are assessed at the time that building permits are pulled. I think Mr. Alligood could probably discuss that. However, I don't know, I can't remember off the top of my head if we agreed to any fixed rate within that developer's agreement. It's a pretty dense developer's agreement.
Yes, it is. Okay.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Chief, any motion on the heavy rescue from the people that came down?
We have not had any movement on that yet.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Okay. Any other questions?
I guess I have a question about, have we had any concerns from citizens about the increase in, since it's been on the bill to let people know ahead of time what's coming down? Anybody
I
contacted?
have not heard anything, and
Okay.
staff up front hasn't indicated anything. I don't know if Jeremy's office received any, but I haven't heard anything.
Well, it's unfortunate that we got to go this way, but we pretty much got our hands tied.
Well, I don't think we've done anything with them in 12-plus years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with everything else going up, what are you gonna do? We're bringing the millage down.
Well, not only that, with the garbage contract the way it is, we really don't have a choice in
Right.
handling it any other way right now.
Right.
And did they go over it last time? The reason it's going up is because that's what the landfill's going up. And we're going up exactly what they're going up, not a penny more. We could go up $5, but, I talked to the city manager today and they didn't wanna do that. We're not looking to make money off it. We've done enough, but we gotta stay in line at least and not lose money.
Okay, we just got to break even with paying the bill, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Mr. Marshall had said something about looking into auto insurance to see if there was any possibility we could get a better deal. I mean, I know I'm shopping all the time because that is,
Yep.
in our house, the single biggest bill we have every month is our auto insurance. It's gone crazy. Teenagers are probably part of that, but,
Yep.
Ooh,
Yep.
yeah.
you know,
Yep.
can we get a better deal? Because I don't know that people are taking their vehicles home so much, certainly people that are on call. So is there something that we can save there
Right, right.
going forward?
No, we're absolutely looking at
Yeah.
all of those things.
Okay. Gentlemen, any other questions before we open it up for public discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
You all don't have a motion on the floor.
We do not have a motion on the floor.
Just before you open it up for public
We need to
discussion.
have a motion on the floor before we open it up for public discussion.
I'll make a motion to accept Resolution 2024-M.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Madam City Clerk. Oh, yes, sorry. Now we're going to open it up for public discussion.
apologize.
Thank
I
you.
really threw you off
No,
your mojo
you're
there.
right.
I'm
It's okay.
sorry.
You're absolutely right.
Rhythm here.
It's Monday, that's right. Any comments or questions from the audience about the millage rate is what we're voting on right now? Okay, we're ready.
Mayor White,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Grunder,
Yes.
Commissioner Bloodsworth,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
All right. Item number 2, under budget. Discuss, consider, and act. Do you need to read it? Go
I
ahead.
do.
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, this is ordinance number 2024-06, an ordinance adopting the 2024-2025 fiscal year budget of the City of High Springs, Florida, providing an effective date.
Gentlemen, any specific questions about the budget?
No, I've been assured that barring anything crazy, we'll be sticking to this budget. So I'm happy to hear that. This is the rebuilding process.
Yep. Gentlemen, any questions? Okay.
I'd be glad to make a motion
Yes, sir.
to accept 2024-06.
Second.
All right. It's been properly moved and seconded. Do we have any comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, we are ready for roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Grunder,
Yes.
Commissioner Bloodsworth,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Mayor White.
Yes. All right. We have no unfinished business. Next on the agenda is citizens' requests and comments for issues not on the agenda. Please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 5 minutes, please. Come on up to the mic. Can you come up?
Approach the podium.
We want to be able to hear you. That's okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eva Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T. And I'm here because my road is terrible. And we moved from Miami 1999. And so we've been here 24 years paying property taxes every quarter. I live right by the Shell service station, a business, and coming in off of Main Street, we have the popos and we have the tractor trailer drivers and we have the garbage trucks that take their breaks and their lunches or whatever, and you have to go sort of to the pizza restaurant to kind of get around to come right into my house and the rest of that road that stops. So I mean, there's a big rock about that big in the middle of the road. Now they paved part of Shell City coming in from Main Street, but they stopped it. And so from making a right turn coming up to my mobile home and then going out down to the dead end, it's atrocious. So I would love for you guys to hear me tonight and help me get it paved. I've seen developments come in, and before the houses are furnished with people, that development is paved. Okay, I go by land that is bushes and trees. Nobody's staying there, but the road is paved. So I would appreciate if you hear my plea tonight and help me out getting a road paved in that area. Thank you.
Can you give the city clerk the road number so that she has that?
Okay.
That would be helpful. Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else?
Bob Watson. I had a meeting with your city manager several weeks ago to discuss the use of the Civic Center outdoors only for Veterans Day, November 11th. I said there would be no cost to the city. We have volunteers to take the organization and do it. And that. There would be speakers. I asked your manager, and he would not speak, even though he's a vet. I told him the National Guard would bring in military vehicles, a chopper, and a tank. And without me finishing the sentence, he says, "No tanks." No explanation. They're going to tear up everything. Well, they're coming from Stark, and I doubt if they're going to drive the tank on the road and wreck the pavement and that. They probably bring on a little bit or some kind of a trailer type of thing, and we would keep it on that. Nope, no explanation? No. Okay. So therefore, based on those facts, we, the vets, have decided not to hold this event November 11th. If that's the attitude of the city manager, who's also a vet, and I checked down at the VA office, and they confirmed he is a vet. So, obviously, the city, or the manager doesn't care about the vets. We tried to do this. There was a gentleman, unfortunately, he passed away. They used to do it every year at the memorial there by City Hall, but he passed away, and we haven't had anything with the vets. Remember, we're all here because of our men and women in the military, our freedom to be able to speak and say what we want and do. Therefore, I think we could take a few hours and that to celebrate that day. But obviously, we're not getting corporation, and I'm not going to sit here and bicker about it. I'm not going to argue about it. I'm not going to make any noise. We want to thank the men and women in the military, and they say thank you. And that is it. Thank you for your sad consideration, but we want to go with the vets, and I will take it elsewhere. We've already have other office areas that will take to honor our vets. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Julie Tapia Ruano for Transparency. I'm also a candidate for seat number 4. My concerns are to mainly get the word out to the citizens of High Springs about our precinct changes going on without much warning from the Supervisor of Elections. I have written a letter extensively. I believe there are copies that I can get available to you. I won't read the whole thing. I'll just highlight my last paragraph in this letter to Ms. Kim Barton, and I had also published it. The proclamation to the city of High Springs. To all voters in High Springs, make sure that you check online for the site for the Supervisor of Elections of Alachua County before Election Day. Precinct 60, formerly at the United Methodist Church on 441, has been moved to the Douglas Community Center at 18100 Southeast Douglas Street in High Springs, off from Railroad Avenue and to the south. Precinct 20 is still expected to be used at the Civic Center. But in my letter, I had said things like, Dear Ms. Barton, I am writing to share my concern over the sudden and ill-promoted change of location for our Precinct 60 in High Springs. My opinion rises from my extensive training and experience as an assistant clerk in this precinct, from my status as a candidate, and from my general belief that no voter shall be cast aside and lost on Election Day. With the move from the United Methodist Church and to the Douglas Center, which is also a brand new name, people may only know it as Catherine Taylor Park, may not have recognized yet that we are calling it Douglas Community Center, as we just dedicated that building in the last 6 weeks. And my letter goes on, many things, and concerns about candidates and issue promoters being able to place their signs they have to be beyond 150 feet, but is there ample space beyond 150 feet for those solicitors? And do we have enough parking? Will there be personnel at the Methodist Church to tell us, our voters, where to go, how to get to the new location? In the past, as an assistant clerk, I've seen where this has been a problem. People don't know what precinct they're supposed to go to. And as an example, I had taken a picture of my card, my voter's card I just received in the last 4 weeks. It has First United Methodist Church on 441 as my precinct. And I have just ordered that card. It was brand new. I made changes in July. And I have not yet heard anything about the new precinct except through external means and going to the website. So just getting the word out, Precinct 60, citizens, is now at the Catherine Taylor Park Douglas Community Center.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else?
As a follow-up, I have I'm in very much support of Julie's letter, and it goes on extensively, and she'll have it posted in different areas, because there's a lot of reasons why this is going to cause problems for voters. And I have taken the initiative, thanks to Angela. I've printed out the early voting sites and dates and the instructions for mail-in ballots, so that those of you who prefer to do that instead of waiting until voting day and not sure where you're going, and we've seen this in the last 2 years where people have been turned away from 20 to go to 60, and they've had to go even go back sometimes. Very confusing. They get irritated, and they just, they go home and they don't vote. And this is one of our most important voting cycles going on, so we need to make sure people are able to vote. And so I have information, just see me, and so that you know where you can vote early, very easily, lots of, in and out. And if you want to mail in a ballot, it tells you how to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners and staff. My name is Brian Bisher, 166th Avenue here in High Springs, and I've got another little handout for you. I'd like to bring all these nice color pictures for y'all to check out. And this is some new information regarding Mill Creek Sink, and this is from the Florida Springs Institute, the first page, and it shows the watershed area that goes into Mill Creek Sink and then down to Hornsby. So that's a really significant feature, significant geologic feature. I came across this article from 2015. I thought it was pretty interesting. It's from one of my mentors, who's also a protege of Wes Skiles, who you may know. And this is from Jill Heinerth. And she says that, here it is, sitting on the lineament that connects an entire region speaks to its importance in protecting a vast swath of our regional water resources. It may not seem popular to protect such a meager hole in the ground tucked behind a Sonny's barbecue, but we have to look at such places as the beginning of a pipe that can serve to protect an entire region's water resources. And as I had shown you before, there is something called the cross-county fracture that takes water from Mill Creek directly to Hornsby. Do not pass go. The second page is a report from the Florida Springs Institute, and I just want to direct your attention to the third bullet point under water quality, and it shows that Mill Creek groundwater was 0.44 parts per million in nitrate and nitrite, and it's been increasing over the past 3 years, and the FDEP Springs impairment level is 0.35 parts per million. So it's 30% over the Springs impairment level. So that's significant. The next page, the Florida Springs Institute was kind enough to put together an overlay of the high-density development that's right next to the watershed and next to Mill Creek Sink and Mill Creek. And below that, below all those black dots that represent housing units, below that is 40 acres of commercial. So that's an additional, which the city of Alachua is moving forward on a mixed-use change in their comprehensive plan to allow community commercial to have mixed-use development so they could put apartments there as well. And that's going to impact our water quality here in High Springs. The next map is a different development. I can't just stick with Terra. I've got to go on to Tomoka Hills, which is on the southwest side of 441 and I-75. And if you go back to the first map, you'll notice that corner, that intersection there, 441, just to the left of the blue star, right? That's where this property is located. And so it's within the Spring Shed area and the priority focus area for Hornsby. I went to the neighborhood meeting for this particular development. It was really fascinating. The Alachua County EPD was told that it's a golf course and 10 to 20 houses. But in the neighborhood meeting, I said, well, what about the 300 units of commercial and mixed use with 540,000 square feet, the 350 apartments, the 100 single-family detached 100 units, and then the 10 units around the golf course, plus a 200,000 square foot clubhouse. And they had no answers. They had no answers even further when I asked about traffic. I said, well, what do you propose the traffic impacts are going to be here? Because 441 on City of Alachua's future land use map is rated F right now, right? It has a rating of F. And if you have 760 units plus commercial, right, the conservative estimate is 10,000 more car trips. And I thought, well, 10,000 more car trips, how bad could that be? Well, there's only 24,000 car trips a day in that section that's rated F. So I asked them, you know, do they have other colors, right? Purple, right? Because it's going to be horrible. It's going to be painful to have to drive through there and try to get on the freeway. So what I'm encouraging you is there's a meeting October 1st at the County of Alachua. The Alachua County's EPD is going to be presenting to the Board of Commissioners about, I'm sorry.
Please finish telling
okay.
us that, please.
All right. So they're going to be presenting to the Board of County Commissioners the issues as they see it relative to the Terra development and the development that's going on there in the city of Alachua, and the impacts that it's going to have on water quality, including the water quality of High Springs and the wells in between there and the Santa Fe River. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Gentlemen, do you have any response to any of the public comment?
I'd like, what time does the county commission meetings usually take place? I've never been to one of theirs.
This is a
so
special one. It's going to
Yeah.
be at 1:30 in the afternoon.
1:30.
Is that 1:30? Is that correct for this one? Okay. And that'll be in county chambers? Yes. Okay.
Danielle, do you think it'd be worth, if we all agree as commissioners, putting a letter together to just have them, the county commissioner, be read to them from us,
Just stating that we're in support.
that we're in support of not having this?
Because my recollection, and I'm sorry, sir, if I have questions for you, if you don't, no, for you, yes, I'm sorry. This is the development that we wrote the letter about being a
Right.
third-party intervener in Alachua, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
If I can add to that.
sure.
I've been informed by County Council and also the EPD that your letter basically has expired, and they will all expire with each presentation to the city for any of the developments related to Tara. The county is asked to be notified, and they were told by the city of Alachua, we will notify you on every single thing that comes through. We won't parcel out this particular development. So when these issues come up, my request is that the city of High Springs be prepared to put in a new letter as an affected party.
Well, and the Terra hearing hasn't happened, right?
Correct.
Okay, I guess candidly to you all, not to you because you're just the messenger, I don't understand how our letter has quote-unquote expired. The hearing hasn't happened. We've declared ourselves as a third affected party. Candidly, some of it is that I'm not familiar with their code. You know, I don't have to be. So that's kind of where I might be stuck. They might have something in their code that states, I can't imagine what.
That'd be pretty convenient for them.
Yeah, I mean, that just seems convenient, seems like the right word. If I need to re-up our letter, you know, I feel as though you all have already authorized me to do that. I'm happy to
Please do.
submit a secondary letter. In regards to your question, Commissioner Grunder, my understanding is that this is just the county being presented with the issues that we're talking about.
This is a county-to-county informational meeting. It's a policy discussion is how it is on their agenda.
And the secondary development that we're talking about is also located within the city of Alachua?
Also in the city of Alachua, and that's just at the neighborhood meeting phase.
I mean, if it's something you all would like to do, just to write, I'm happy to write a letter to the county commission stating, essentially, we're expressing the same concerns you all are expressing about both of these developments. And we'd like to be kept apprised of what you all figure out, and we'd like our city staff to work with your county staff to kind of share information, if
Yeah.
that's,
That's exactly what I'm thinking. I
Okay.
just think it's important at every turn to let them know that we're in this with them. And
Sure.
that we want to be, partner with them throughout this whole thing, because, we are extremely affected by this.
I got a question for you.
sure.
Since we're not in that realm of discussion, do we have any protection? Is the county, does this still have to be approved by the county even though it's in the city? Be the same way with us if we were trying to do something like this, if Lotchaway, would they have any recourse against us allowing this? I mean, what are we gonna do about fighting this? Because, our water is definitely gonna be affected by this, by drainage and runoff.
So the standing that the city has here is, and to be honest with you guys, you're not used to seeing it. For example, in the city of Archer, we just had that big concrete batch hearing, and we had a citizen who came in as a third affected party, and they essentially got to act as a party to the case. So when you think about quasi-judicial and how it typically comes in front of you, it's almost like there's only one party in a court case. That's who's presenting their evidence. You guys ask them questions, city staff weighs in, public comments, and then you make an assessment based upon your code. However, when you have a third-party intervener, that third party is granted all the same rights that an applicant has. So, for example, if someone came into High Springs and in a quasi-judicial hearing declared themselves as a third-party intervener, they'd be able to present for an unlimited period of time. They could present experts, they could elicit testimony, they could cross-examine people presented by the applicant. So essentially what our original letter, the purpose of our original letter is to say, hey, we're a third party, we're an affected third party, we're declaring that status. So that when this quasi-judicial hearing happens, as it neared, I'm sure the plan will be to approach here and figure out who are we gonna send, how do we wanna represent ourselves, so on and so forth. And that may be in discussions with the county. But essentially, we would send someone to probably an attorney and city staff who's going to be knowledgeable to how it's going to affect the city. Because one thing, there's case law that says attorney argument is not competent and substantial evidence. So I can stand up there till my face turns blue, but they can't consider anything that I'm saying. You have to have someone who is qualified to testify essentially about the issue. So the thought would be is to present someone at that hearing to say, hey, the city of High Springs is really going to be affected based upon the lack of regulations perhaps that you have on the current site plan. We're really detrimentally going to be affected. And it sounds like the county's going to come forward and say something similar, and I'm putting words into their mouth, so don't quote me on that. But based upon the letter that was presented by this gentleman sorry.
Somebody snatched somebody's kid.
You had multiple phones to silence. Now it's your turn.
I think mine's going off. Oh, no.
So the county will do something very similar. As a result, you'll end up with basically three parties to the case. You'll end up with the applicant's presentation, you'll end up with the county's presentation, and you'll end up with our presentation. Ultimately, it comes down to how the city commission in Alachua wants to handle it. And when I say wants to handle it, you're in a quasi-judicial, so you guys are aware of, you're operating within your confines of here's what our code says. We're assessing competent and substantial evidence. So if competent and substantial evidence is produced to allow them to deny the site plan as created, then they can deny it. Same thing with you guys, though. If you're presenting no competent and substantial evidence to deny something, obviously you all are well aware of the feeling of it is what it is, it meets our code. Sorry, now my other phone is getting the notification. That's what I get for giving you a hard time about two phones. I apologize. That was a very belabored answer, and I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, no, I guess he's brought up a good point about
Right.
maybe our letter is no good right now. So are we going to be able to stay in good standing with that letter? Are we going to have to stay on top of this?
I can send
You
it.
know?
It sounds like, because number one, I really do think that initial authorization that you all gave me to write that letter, I don't need a new motion every time we need to re-up the letter. So my thought is to not only send the letter now, but also to call the city attorney over there and just try to figure out why there's discussion now of why our letter is not valid anymore. I might do that first, to be honest with you. Maybe it is still valid. Maybe they're fine with it. If they're not, I'll happily resend another one.
Well, wouldn't they have given you some sort of complimentary call or?
I would make the phone call if it was me, but different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, I got you.
I don't know if I'd expect them to make the phone call if they already said our letter's no good and we haven't even had the meeting yet.
Well, everything's email, so type it in, baby.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
To circle back though, Commissioner Grunder, are you making a motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we send a partnership letter to the county on this for them to have for the 10/21/24 meeting. That's basically just something like you wrote up last time, just to let them know that we're in it with them and that at every step we'll be right there with them.
And perhaps my understanding from what you've expressed tonight is that we, as opposed to just standing in solidarity with them, perhaps we'd like to correspond from our city staff to their county staff
Yes.
to, to understand what resources what their resources have overturned.
Yes, and what we can do together.
Right.
And wouldn't you say the information that this gentleman's been giving us is pretty good information?
I'm sorry, will you say that one more time?
I said, like the stuff here that he's been presenting to us these last couple of meetings, wouldn't you say that's pretty good evidence?
It's a commission by commission assessment of what is competent and substantial evidence. You and I can sit here and say something's competent and substantial evidence, but someone may, reasonable minds may vary. So you may have a commission who thinks, X, Y, and Z is not competent and substantial evidence. So, we can all say that, this looks like great stuff. We would absolutely consider it, but it really is going to come down to that city and what their commission considers to be competent and substantial.
Okay.
I'll
There-
second the motion.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
There are some procedural issues that may require legal point of view with respect to how they're handling changes within their zoning and comprehensive plan through special exception permits and having only a neighborhood meeting and one planning and zoning board meeting without going to the city commission for approval.
Well, and that's where lawyers kind of take delight, right, is the gray area. So if it's procedural issues, that's something that absolutely the points can be made of. And there's also the option, and it's down the road, and I and Scott, we're not the kind of attorneys that we come out and we beat our chests. It's just not who we are, because it's not who High Springs is. But there is potentially legal recourse should a decision be made on not competent and substantial evidence. That's why when we sit here and we speak to you all about quasi-judicial, as we caution you, it has to be based on competent and substantial evidence to survive legal muster should it be challenged in court. So keep in mind that there is always, and it's not just affected parties that can bring case, or declared affected parties, I should say. You have to have standing to file a lawsuit. But it wouldn't just be that only the city of High Springs and only Alachua County could bring a lawsuit if they felt as though the decision wasn't made upon competent and substantial evidence. We see citizens sue cities all the time. We see other municipalities. So just something to keep in mind that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, there is another affected party who's submitted.
there?
Yes, which is an adjoining landowner, the National Speleological Society.
So, even if they hadn't declared themselves as a third affected party, if I was that attorney, her attorney, I would recommend to them that you probably do have standing for a lawsuit if you can meet these X, Y, and Z for the claim. So just something to keep in the back of your minds as we're working through this process, that the city commission decision isn't dispositive of the end. There are next steps that you can take, and we could assess if push came to shove. But I think that the initial step of working with the county to learn what we don't know and learn what they do know, and then arrive at this October hearing ready to present is a reasonable course.
Okay.
And that one doesn't require the affected party status letter because that's
Right.
at the county.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Gentlemen, any other follow-up comments or questions? No? Mr. Watson, I would just like to respond to what you said about Veterans Day. I would like you to know that
Oh, Madam Mayor, I apologize. You
Yes,
have a
sir.
motion on the floor.
we have a motion on the floor.
I second the motion.
And that was to,
Send the letter to
Send
the
a letter.
county, both declaring support and also requesting that we, cooperate with one another with our resources.
okay. Any follow-up or questions or comments about that from the audience? Okay. We have a motion to send a letter. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. So I just wanted to share with you, Mr. Watson, that the youth council recently did a September 11th ceremony over at the fire station, and I talked to Mr. Marshall about speaking at that, and he declined as well. He prefers for it to be about the others. And I shouldn't speak for him because he's not here, but I thought that he could share some experience as well as a veteran. And I think he's a little shy about that. And I don't think that it was that he didn't care about your issue. I think it's just he doesn't like it to be about him. So I would just wanted to share that with you. All right.
Also, I'd
Yes,
like
sir.
to address the issue about the precinct being changed.
Yes, sir.
As someone that has dealt with that, coming from the other church down to the Methodist church,
Mm-hmm.
because Ms. Tapiano is correct, my card had the same thing, and you go down there, and, oh, no, you've been moved to the Civic Center now.
Mm-hmm.
And as Ms. Jones has pointed out, people getting aggravated, they just give up and don't go.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is, do we have any recourse to the city of High Springs that the voting precinct is being moved without even being warned as the citizens? And as she pointed out, now she has a new card and the Methodist Church is her precinct on her card.
Right. I don't
Is there
know.
any
I
kind of
mean-
legal or any issues that we have, any standing with that?
Candidly, I'm not particularly familiar with that portion of the statute, just because the ordinance typically falls on the supervisor of elections. So the cities very rarely end up in that portion of the statutes. That said, I'm happy to look into it and provide a response to you all.
I just know the confusing issue that's going to be on voting day if people wait and vote on that day.
Yeah, it will. And, just to follow up on that item, I also reached out to Ms. Barton's office, and she responded very quickly. She was very, very responsive. And she indicated that, well, the Methodist Church is on the wrong side of 441. The Fellowship Baptist Church was on the other side of 441, so it was within the precinct. The Methodist Church is just on the other side. So she indicated that they proceeded with moving it because of High Springs voter outreach to their office. So I have submitted a public records request to her office to ask for that feedback, because I can tell you that everybody I've spoken to is very much not in favor for a number of different reasons. Number one, it's not on a major arterial road. It's not easy it's nestled back in a neighborhood. And like Ms. Tapio-Orano said, it's just been recently renamed. And if you look at the Supervisor of Elections website, they have the new address, but there's no hyperlink there. And if you pull up a map, they still have Fellowship Baptist Church as the picture.
Not even the Methodist
They
Church.
don't even have the Methodist Church. So the delay, now there have been, I think, at least 12, maybe 13 total precinct changes across the county. I don't know what kind of notification the others got. That might be a question that could be related, but my concern to her was, we're only 49 days out of a major presidential election. I'm not disagreeing that it's on the wrong side of 441, but I think that that's a more appropriate location just because of the ease of access. Much, much bigger facility. But if we wanted to identify an alternate location that was in the precinct, and I get that, I think probably next year, maybe December or January would be a better time. I don't know. I don't think she has any requirement to do anything. She's probably done the due diligence she needed to. She asked for Angela to let her know when the CO was issued, and Angela let her know. So she made that decision independent of staff input. She doesn't have to bring that to us at all. That's it within her purview.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it being there like most people, but probably the timing of
It's
making
just,
this-
it's much harder to find.
I thought,
So-
based on statute, it had to be moved once a municipality had a building that was city-owned within that precinct that was available and could be used for it. I thought it had to be moved
Really? Okay.
to that.
That
Is-
quickly?
The
No, that's the
understanding I
thing.
had is I bet that's why she asked for the CO.
Yeah.
Because I bet it's within a certain amount of days, it has to be, or if it's not within, I don't know. But that's the impression that I got previously whenever we were talking about doing the Douglas Centers, it would have to be moved later.
Seems like everybody, affected parties would be well advanced notice,
Mail or something.
new cards issued and all such as that.
She's assured me that there will be notice. This just really started happening last week-ish.
Well, it doesn't gotta
We
be
got
last
the
minute.
We're
final-
6 weeks from the election now.
Yes,
That-
I understand.
That's my biggest issue, is just the time.
Right. She did say there would be proper notice. She is supposed to get me something to go out on our utility bills
Okay.
for our citizens. We did discuss that today. She was supposed to get that to me so that I can get it to downstairs. So hopefully we could get it out in utility bills. They
We-
just toured the facility 2 or 3 weeks ago. And last week they contacted me to schedule the drop-off of equipment. And I had just found out, I didn't even know there was a sign out there. Until
That's
the
how I
mayor
found out,
asked me.
because I
Right.
walked up and there was a sign, so.
Right, but she has assured me she will. They also contacted me, I will tell you today, about, I know there was the question on the cones, the parking. They are gonna cone it and, to distinguish parking for just voters. So they're
There's
gonna
not much
put
space.
bigger signs out at, I don't know about staff, she didn't mention that to me, but I know there's gonna be directional signage out at the Methodist Church to direct people how to go, to get to the new site. As questions arise, she is trying to address them, so she does call and ask questions. There's been concerns about crime in the area. I think she reached out to the chief of police about patrolling and all that kind of thing. So as the questions come in, yes, she is trying to address them as they come.
Well, the other question I also asked her was which other locations she had considered.
Yeah, that I don't know.
You know, there's certainly no other city-owned locations in that precinct that she could have used, but there are some others that might have been more on the, less off the beaten path, I guess.
Right.
So we'll see, what she says. But she said that it was High Springs voter outreach, so I'm just
Well, that's just the
curious.
information I have, like
Okay.
where she's heading and what she's trying to do because we had a conversation about it today.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to new business. This is a resolution. Do we need to?
I would be
Pass it over
happy
to
to
you.
read it in for you. This is resolution number 2024-W, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of High Springs, amending the city's personnel policy, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
I've got 2024-V.
I'm sorry, did I skip ahead?
I think we skipped one.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I got excited.
That's all right.
Personnel policy is really just,
Yeah, woo.
It is.
Whatever does it for you, that's
I
great.
knew that cell phone policies were really going to get you guys excited
You
tonight,
know
so
it.
I was
You
trying to
know
get
it.
to it.
I was fired up reading it. I'll tell you that.
I apologize. This is resolution number 2024-V, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of High Springs, Florida, amending the rates charged by the water, sewer, and solid waste systems, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
So gentlemen, the overview that we have on this is residential solid waste is going to go up by $3 a can. And the bulk monthly rate will go up by $3.99 per month for water only. No change in wastewater. The one question I had about the water was getting on a regular flushing schedule. I see Jason's head pop up for. Great.
Perfect.
Great, thank you. Great. All right. Any questions, gentlemen?
No, but it's definitely something we need to do. We haven't looked at these in 12-plus years, and if we're going to maintain what we've got, unfortunately, we need to charge a little more.
All right, gentlemen, any other comments or questions? Do we have a motion? Yes, ma'am, after we get a motion in a second. Yes, ma'am. I won't forget, I promise.
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2024-V.
Second.
All right, yes, ma'am, please. No, you're fine.
A very hard time hearing.
Do we need to speak closer to the microphone?
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
better? Okay.
As you can tell, I'm one of your senior citizens. I've been in High Springs about 9 years, I believe, going on 10.
Can you give me your
And,
name, please, ma'am? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Your
yes,
name.
I can hear you now.
What's your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Catherine Rothgeb.
Okay.
And as I said, I've been here, I'm going on 10 years. And I moved here from a very small town in South Florida, Jupiter, in the Jupiter-Tequesta area.
I know Jupiter.
I came here because it reminded me of the original Jupiter, which has now gone poof, as you are doing now. And my question on these raises is to all of you, it may seem quite minuscule, But when you are on a limited income, as I am, that's another almost $100 a year. And when I get my Social Security raise every year, which is also minuscule, then they take it back. 2 years ago, we had a, I don't know, 4% raise. I looked at it and I went, ooh, $70. And when I got it, it was $4. This past year, it was the same type of thing. So my question is this fee the same for every residence in town?
Yes, ma'am. For
Okay.
everybody on city water, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so does it seem quite right if a 2,500 square foot house with, I mean, I know we're on meters for water, but for the sewer and for trash pickup, a house that has 4 or 5 bathrooms is going to have a lot more output than my under 1,000 foot square house with 1 bathroom has. It takes me 2 weeks to fill the trash can. Some of us do not have the impact. And if I may, I couldn't hear you earlier. I believe you are considering impact fees on new things.
New construction,
May
yes.
I please ask you to look at that very hard? It was done in South Florida. You will maybe have to do that because you're developing so fast here, and it's only fair to your earlier citizens that be a consideration.
And just to answer your question in terms of the monthly bill, we're talking about the monthly static charge. The difference in your bill versus me with 3 kids at home that take long showers is that there's a per gallon rate that you also pay. And that's where the people with higher use are going to have higher bills.
Yes, but
Yes.
does it not affect your, I mean, is the solid waste and the
The solid waste is a flat fee
and
for every
sewer
residential can.
becomes a waste cost? Is that not more from a larger house with more bathrooms?
It is. And that's based on flow and total use, yes.
Okay,
And
it is based that way.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And the sewer rate is tied into the water use rate.
Okay, that was part of my
So,
question.
yeah, it's definitely directly related to how much you use, yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Concerning the water, I mean, the solid waste to me is one thing. We don't have to drink it. But the city water, you can't drink it. I have to carry water in for drinking water, and then I have the gallon distilled water that I buy, the gallons, for cooking. I mean, the water, the chlorine, and sometimes in the bathroom, you can see it's not feasible for you to really put in your bodies. So, I mean, you're asking for an extra charge up on the water, but most people have to buy water to drink it, and to cook with. That's all.
Have you called the Public Works Department so that they can look into that by any chance? Because they can come and they can test your residual chlorine at your house to see how much there is. Our Public Works Director is here, and I'm sure if you called the Public Works Department, they could come down and look at what's going on. Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? All right, gentlemen, we have a motion and a second. Madam City Clerk.
Bloodsworth,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Mayor Whites,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grunder.
Yes.
All right, Danielle, it's you again, another resolution.
Well, this is the one I was really excited about. This is resolution number 2024-W, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of High Springs, amending the city's personnel policy, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
So if I understand this correctly, there was no credit card use policy, and no cell phone policy in the employee manual. Okay, so we're augmenting. I've read through this. I have no problem with what's in here.
Although there was no policy set in place, how did y'all go about people using credit cards? What was the procedure?
Everyone still had to abide by the purchasing policy, so everyone's spending limits were the same as they had if we were writing a check for something. So they had to fall within that. They had to turn in receipts within 30 days of using the credit card so that we had the backup. And then if they didn't, that was an issue for the supervisors. We didn't have an issue with that. But we did not have a formal policy.
How many different city-issued credit cards do we have?
The directors have them.
Okay,
And that's
all right, so this is for directors.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. And then in terms of cell phones, I know that Jeremy looked at that pretty closely in terms of who had to just to try to cut some costs.
Right, right. It varies by department. I actually could probably look it up if you wanted me to tell you how many are in each group, but we definitely did cut back this year as part of the budget process on who had city cell phones.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, any other questions?
No. I will make a motion that we approve Resolution 2024-W.
I second.
All right, any questions or comments from the audience? All right, Angela.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Mayor White,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grunder,
Yes.
Commissioner Bloodsworth.
Yes.
Next on the agenda, discuss the possibility of establishing a minimum lot size for future development in High Springs. This was something that I asked for the city manager to bring to us for discussion, because with issues like Bridlewood, we had very little legal ability to have any control over how dense that was. And for me, one of the things that I hear about the very most from residents is we've got to stop packing it in. We've got to, make it feel more like High Springs. Well, we don't have any teeth or legal ability to make that happen if we don't talk about maybe changing some of our code, our comprehensive plan, our LDC, our future land use map. There's a lot that needs to be changed, and I imagine it could take at least a year to do all that if we had help, if Christie wasn't alone. It's a big thing to do, but if we had in our comprehensive plan and all the other documents that required something with the zoning PD to have a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet, that's nominally a quarter of an acre. We could go bigger, we could go smaller. It's up to you guys to provide some input here, but this is just kind of an idea to get the conversation started, to see if we could take hold of our own destiny a little bit better than we can right now. So,
I'm on board with not going below a quarter of an acre.
okay,
Definitely no smaller.
okay. Christie gave us some tables here in terms of R1, R1A, and there's nothing here that's smaller than 10,000 square feet. So we've already established for these a quarter of an acre, right, Christie? I'm sorry.
It's by zoning category, so the smallest one is going to be R3, and they're 4,500 square feet, I believe.
I don't see that on
I
here.
don't know how it printed on there, but
I've got 10,000 on here for minimum lot size with septic tank.
that's probably for R1 zoning.
No, I'm looking at R3.
It's one more down.
One more down. One more down.
Second.
Okay, down here, got it. I see you. I'm with you. 45. Okay.
Yeah, that's the most dense one we have is 4,500, and then I guess the next step up would probably be 7,500, I think.
Yes.
For R2.
Yes. And 10,000 is typically what you use for a benchmark for a quarter of an acre.
I believe so.
Okay. So a 100-foot lot line instead of 70s or 60s
Yes.
or whatever. Okay. So that's something, frankly, gentlemen, that I'd be interested in changing as well, is the 7,500 and 4,500.
And then I did put some information on your dais regarding kind of existing subdivisions. Mr. Marshall asked me to grab some info. It's not the prettiest document because it was quickly made. So it hit most of the bigger subdivisions and things that people would recognize as, oh yeah, that's a subdivision in High Springs. So it didn't hit a lot of the smaller ones. I did include at the end the kind of the core of downtown, which is that original plat, which people don't really know by name because it's just the older part of the city. And I'd be happy to get more info if there's one that you would like to see on there or have more information on. Yeah, so if you need anything else on that, just let me know.
Okay, thank you. One thing that Danielle and I talked about today too that she brought up was if there's oddball lot sizes, like say somebody has, you know, a lot that's a third of an acre and however it's zoned has to be a half an acre. We're not looking to make it difficult for people to do what they want to do with their land, but just to solidify the definitions, I guess. So this was just an opportunity to have a discussion, no vote or just kind of talk about it.
I do think that, man, it's hard. You know, it's really hard because you sit there and you look at, like none of us want to live in like a Bailey Estates, and that is nothing. I think it's a very nice development. It's just not for a guy like me who was born and raised in High Springs.
Right.
Just not.
Right.
But if you go in there, there's not a vacant lot.
Right.
So there is desire to have that. However, I think almost handling it in like a land development regulation code to where you can find unique places where that could be off of main thoroughfares with a minimal amount of traffic impacted would be kind of better for something like that. Not tucked. I mean, I don't think Bridlewood's going to be an ugly subdivision. Like I said, I you know, for me, it wouldn't be for me in the way I choose to live. But it couldn't be in a worse spot for traffic. Could not be in a worse spot. So I almost think that if we attacked it through the land development regulation, that we could figure out, okay, if you're going to have it, you can only have something like that on this thoroughfare, where it's maybe right off 440. I don't know. Right. And that's just spitballing here, but I do think that that off of certain roads and in certain areas, it's just not feasible to have houses so close together and pack that traffic in there. But there is, you know, I also don't want to get to the point where I price new homeowners and young families out of being able to live in a very safe, nice community with all the things that we have to offer young people like that. I don't want to make it a place where it's unaffordable for the people that do work in the town to live in the town. And unfortunately, right now, we're right there. So I don't know, but I do appreciate you bringing this up because I think it's something that's been long overdue and needs to have a serious sit-down discussion on and a very honest conversation about.
What zoning would there be, Christy, I'm going to ask you again, sorry, for townhomes? You know, because I wouldn't want to make it so that we precluded having that kind of construction as well. How would you zone a townhome?
So currently, we do need to have a zoning that a townhome would work in because right now there really isn't. So how we fixed that was we went the plan development route where you basically write your own standards. You'll have an underlying zoning and write those standards in because we did have a townhome project that was coming in. So that's how we did it last time was plan development. So you create your own.
So could we create our own plan development townhome zoning category? Just for townhomes?
It probably wouldn't be called a plan development because that's kind of the special one. You can create one, though, that allows for it.
Okay.
Because the zonings allow for townhomes, but because of our setback requirements, that's kind of what doesn't allow for it. So we would just custom tailor it a little better to have some sort of zoning that's better for it.
Okay. And we would have to make any kind of change here, we would have to update our comprehensive plan, which we're going to have to do anyway once we get our Parks Master Plan. We would have to update the future land use map. We'd have to update the LDR.
Yeah, I'm trying to think through all the things we would need to change. So I would have to double check what would change in the comprehensive plan because that's basically establishing your future land use and which is your density. And then the land development code enacts those through zoning, and you have like your minimum lot sizes and minimum lot widths and things like that. So it is a large project.
Yes.
So it would need to be narrowed down. We were supposed to already update our land development code. As you know, it's very expensive. We are looking for grants to do that. There's going to be potentially one coming up next year that could help. But yes, our land development code needs to match our comprehensive plan.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you all still contract with North Central Florida Regional Planning Council?
We do.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
And so they wouldn't, even if we like did a minute, if we like really narrowed in on what we wanted to change. I understand the point that's being made here this evening is that an overhaul is necessary.
Yes.
But theoretically, they could assist in just creating a new zoning district, kind of along the lines of what the mayor was just asking, because that would be one change, right?
Correct, yeah. So we can provide them with changes that we want. So we have changed the land development code. We would just need what it currently is versus what we want, a strike-through version. We would go through the process through them. They would generate our notifications. It would go to plan board. It'd come to you guys. So yes, we can change the land development code to add in zoning categories. We actually did that not too many years ago. We added in the agricultural section in there for a zoning category. So definitely feasible as long as it still matches our comprehensive plan.
Okay.
The other thing we could do, Madam Mayor, our office obviously has a great working relationship with them because they basically are in all of our cities. I'd be happy to reach out to Sandra to get some examples of what other cities are doing in terms of minimum lot sizes. You know, you all are suggesting doing something that's a little abnormal simply because typically we see minimum lot sizes becoming smaller for
Right.
purposes of affordable housing.
Right.
So I'm happy to reach out to Sandra and Scott Coons to find out whether or not they've ever done it the reverse. You know, to bring you all some thoughts on how other cities have gone the opposite way, if at all. If
Okay.
that's something you all would like brought back.
Yes, please. Data would be great. Thank you. Thank you, Christy.
No problem.
Gentlemen, any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's a good thing to look into because I know Gainesville just decreased. So, and little than we know, we're gonna be impacted by that, even though they're 30 minutes away from us.
That's right.
But I agree that there still should be some areas that are smaller because somebody like me, Tristan, I don't want to have to cut no acre lot. I work 7 days a week. I wouldn't want to do that. So
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
That's why I have a 14-year-old son.
Yep.
I don't have to cut my own. I'm like, boy, get out there.
All right. Any other comments before we move on? Yes.
Brian Bisher, High Springs. I think it's a great idea to expand the lot sizes, especially in the karstic environment that we have here. You know, to keep compressing everything smaller and smaller, like we see going on everywhere else, is maniacal, really, in this type of environment. I think I was just speaking with a hydrogeologist over the weekend. He said it used to be I wouldn't, and he lives in White Springs. He's like, it used to be I wouldn't go south of I-4. He says, then I decided I wouldn't go south of Ocala. And then it was, I'm not going to go to Ocala. And then it was, well, I'm not going to go past Gainesville. And then it's like, now I'm not even going to go to Gainesville. And he's like, now with this stuff going in Alachua, he's like, now I can't even go to Alachua. So packing people in isn't the answer.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Madam Mayor, one thing before we leave this point, and I think you've got a comment, but I do want to flag that I do want to look into the legality of restricting predetermined zoning to certain areas. I just don't want to get into a situation of bills of attainder, meaning you're targeting a certain group of people with legislation.
Sure.
So I do want to flag that I'm not 100% sure on that one, and I'll bring that information back to you all as well. I just wanted to let you know that I'll look into that piece of it in addition to the contacting Sandra Joseph piece of it.
And there's always the underlying fly in the ointment that if there's a pre-existing plat,
Correct, that's what's
we
going to govern.
that's going just like there was at Bridlewood.
Unless they vacate the plat, that's
Right,
what's going to govern,
right.
correct.
Yep.
Hi, Sarah Younger, in unincorporated High Springs. I would echo the statement that Brian just gave about the need sometimes to be very mindful of what's beneath the surface. I know you all know the water systems here are very vulnerable. And I was going to speak to that matter a little bit later, but I might just mention, in case someone hasn't already, October 1st,
Yes.
in High Springs here at the library, we're going to have DEP here at 10 a.m. taking the time to meet with us all about the water quality for our area, the nutrient loads in the systems that we rely on as water. I'm a well water user, so I rely on that system to be both clear of nutrients that are not healthy, as well as, you know, the quantity, which is the other side of the coin. So I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you.
And then, have we looked any more into the septic tanks for new developments? Have we looked into that anymore?
Not that I know of.
I know we mentioned it in the meeting, but
Well, I mean, if we've got a development like we have the one going in, that's supposed to be an equine facility, they're gonna be well and septic.
Yeah.
So their septic tanks are gonna have to comply with Alachua County requirements. And newer septic tanks are much, much more effective in terms of nutrient mitigation, so.
I think it's anything over what size, there's a certain size that anything over that goes on septic.
Anybody else? All right. Well, there's no vote on this. We were just having a conversation. So next on the agenda, number 4, discuss, consider, and act on PBA contract with fiscal year 2024-2025 ratification.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Commission. The City of High Springs, along with PBA, negotiated an annual contract, and the articles in question were Article 23, which are wages, Article 3, which is grievance and arbitration, and the revisions therein was Article 3 is correlates with your budget for the amount of compensation for the officers. I think that was 5%. Article 3, as I mentioned, was grievance arbitration. The change in that particular article was that grievances expanded from 5 days to 10 days, giving both the city and the union time to resolve those differences. And let me just revisit Article 23, and there was a change in the foreign experience. There were a few members that were left out on the previous contract for compensation of those measures, and that's also been budgeted into your budget for this year.
Okay.
So we presented all those articles, and the contract has been ratified on the union side in the 17-0 vote in favor of the contract, and so we're presenting this for recommendation for approval. I'll take any questions.
I'm looking at you.
Hey, having sat on the union side many a times, I will tell you that I heard that there's nothing but the utmost respect back and forth, and that it was a very pleasant experience, which I can tell you, having sat on the other side, and Diane having sat in meetings with me, it has not always been that way. So apparently you guys did an absolutely great job, and you know, they need to be paid, and they need the raises, and we need to keep that going in the future.
Thank you. I think it's a testament of leadership of Mr. Marshall and this commission, so thank you.
And Chief Shepherd.
That's right.
We cannot overlook Chief Shepherd.
In 5 days, that's all you had before? 5 days?
Yes, 5 days.
Lord.
Okay.
That was fast.
10 days is fair.
That's right.
We've only had one agreement under my administration. So we
Well,
resolved
there
one.
you go.
You're a miracle worker. Please don't leave.
Gentlemen, do you have any questions?
I'll make a motion.
Yes, sir, please.
I make a motion that we approve the PBA contract.
Second.
All right, it has been properly moved and seconded. Do we have any questions or comments from the audience? Mama of a police officer right there. All right, it has been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, good job, Chief.
All right, city attorney report and update.
Neither a report nor update, but rather bringing up something potentially for action for you all this evening. Being the born Floridian, non-Floridian in the room, given the storm barreling at you
One of my
all.
questions.
We were tossing around the idea, Chief, Kevin, and Angela and I, before this meeting, about whether or not to declare a state of emergency effective tomorrow to run for 7 days, just so that we don't have to emergency convene you all.
That's one of my questions right here. Take it out here.
My understanding and my limited weather knowledge is that we're pretty much gonna get it. So I don't think that there's any risk in
Right.
declaring an emergency at this point in time. I know we don't have a resolution in front of you. However, it's very simple for Angela to type one up based upon what you all decide tonight. And Madam Mayor, if you'll
Yes.
grace City Hall with your presence tomorrow, we could get your signature on it.
Whatever
and
you
it would
need.
be good to go.
Absolutely, no problem.
So I just wanted to pose that idea to you all tonight, just to avoid having another meeting. You're already
Yeah.
here.
Do we just need to make a motion?
Just a
on that?
motion, a second, your
I'll make
usual.
the motion that we go ahead and establish a state of emergency starting tomorrow for 7 days for the upcoming storm.
Second.
Do we need to vote on that? Oh, public comment. Would anybody like to comment on declaring a state of emergency? All righty. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Well, it's really not a state of emergency, but. It kind of is. The Women's Club is collecting food Saturday for deeper purpose.
Okay.
So in your state of emergency, don't
Okay.
forget about
Okay.
the food collection.
Okay.
8:30 to 10:30 Saturday morning at
Okay.
the Women's Club.
Isn't that
Thank
when
you.
the storm's coming?
Thank you. Yeah.
I know.
No, storm's coming
That's where
Thursday.
we'll be.
Thursday. That's Thursday. It'll be over by then. And it's going to head up to the garnet and gold part of the world. It's going to skirt us anyway, so we'll see.
We've won more games, it should hit them harder.
Yeah. Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we declare a state of emergency lasting 7 days. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Nothing else from me, thank you.
All right, Chief, do you have a report and update?
Only thing I was gonna also update you and let you know that all of our department heads are working collaboratively for the storm, and we will continue, all our folks are ready. We're gonna have some daily meetings, and Mr. Marshall will be back, so he can take the reins of power.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bloodsworth?
Just like to say to all our city staff, if they're listening, that hope they stay safe and keep us all going as operational through this storm.
Yes, sir.
I was in Winn-Dixie today, and I met this individual. And as soon as he left the store, all the people that were in the store were saying you should make him the employee of the week this week. So the employee of the week this week is Mr. Ron Wenzel from the that maintenance the graveyards.
Nice. Very nice. Is that it? Sir?
No, glad to be back. Sorry I missed last time. It's my son's first ever high school football game. Swore to him I'd be there. He did well.
Good. Kevin, do we have an update on the path? I was checking earlier today. Do we? And we'll still get some outer bands here and storm surge and, okay. Okay.
I look forward to your emails, Kevin. They always kept me up to date.
Yes. I want to say happy birthday to Natalie. Today is her birthday. She's very beautiful. And the Mayor's Youth Council is going to get started with tutoring. That young lady back there is taking the bull by the horns. And they're going to be hopefully starting on Wednesdays. And Cassandra Davis is helping us with that. And they're very excited to get started. And I wanted to thank Camp Kalakwa. I don't know that we've really had an opportunity to do that for what they're doing for our fire department.
Absolutely.
That is just above and beyond in terms of community involvement, and being able to relocate our trucks and everything there is amazing. And the only other thing I had was I had the most lovely conversation with a lady last week that's a lifelong resident here, and the stories she had was incredible. And she wanted to thank you gentlemen for what we're doing and for just the general tone, and we're keeping our language so professional, and she was just absolutely over the moon. And she's been here almost 100 years, so well, 90 years, not 100. So I just wanted to thank you all. Yes, 90. But it was a wonderful phone call, and I learned so much about High Springs. So that's all I've got. Gentlemen, be safe.
Good for her.
I appreciate you being here, Danielle. We'll motion to adjourn, gentlemen.
Danielle here.